Welcome back into the Dynasty Gambit. Tonight, we take a deep dive into the 2024 rookies, quarterbacks, and the running backs. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into the Dynasty Gambit. I am your host, Gator J. You can find me at FantasyJ77 over there on Twitter. I am joined by my faithful co-host, Steven, at Target Shares over there on Twitter. And welcome back, Brian, at VandyGrad92 on Twitter. Brian, how are you, sir? Glad to have you back on the Dynasty Gambit.
Thanks, Gator. But doing better. I was in the hospital for basically 7 weeks, and now I'm back home. I finally got a stretcher 2 weeks ago yesterday, I think. So it's been in and out of the hospital, but I'm glad to be doing better.
7 weeks too long.
Yeah,
that's number one. Glad you're back home. That's number two. And I'm glad you're back on the Gambit. If you go back in that hospital again, take the damn phone with you. We're doing the Gambit from the hospital room.
That might be too entertaining, but the last couple of days have been kind of low key, so we could probably do it. So.
Absolutely. Steven, how are you tonight, sir? How are we doing?
Doing well. Yeah, excited to talk about these quarterbacks and running backs, especially the running back class. I think it's gotten a lot of hate and kind of partially for good reason, but I think there's some players that could be all right.
Yeah, I saw a tweet this week, and I can't remember who put it out there. I'm sure everybody's talking. You know, April is here. It's giving us the start of baseball. You know, the Final Four, the Masters, hockey playoffs. You know, tonight we are officially 4 weeks right now, 4 weeks from the NFL draft, round one.
I love the draft, obviously, but yeah, very excited.
And that's where we get all the final picture, the final piece of the puzzle comes together in 4 weeks from the night. Landing spots happen. So like you said, we're going to talk about quarterbacks, running backs. Let's start off with the quarterbacks. And let's start off not with QB1 overall, but Jaden Daniels out of LSU, 23.3 years old, 6'4", 210 pounds, quarterback 2 on DLF, ADP of 310. Steven, Jaden Daniels, tell me about it.
I really like Jaden Daniels. He's my QB3. I got him behind Caleb and May. I will say, I do a lot of modeling stuff, and quarterbacks are just such a crapshoot with the analytical modeling. I mean, I feel a lot more confident with the other positions, but technically he comes out as first in terms of projected points over the first 3 years of his career, projected fantasy points. And I think a lot of that's the rushing, because there are two things that are pretty sticky from college to the pros. The first one is scramble rate, and he's literally the 100th percentile prospect over the last 8 years in QB scramble rate in college. We really like that. The other one, not as good, pressure to sack rate. Takes a lot of sacks when he's pressured. He's an 8th percentile prospect there. That's not great. That takes a lot of passing attempts out of the offense, both the scrambles and then the sacks when he's pressured too. So, and there's some other up and downs with him too, like really good accuracy on a really deep ADOT, but a pretty small number of attempts. He's pretty slow when he's passing the ball. Not quite as bad as Caleb, but pretty slow there. Good PFF grade, but bad big time throw rate. Like a lot of ups and downs. Like I think he's definitely worth a top 5 pick, but I've got him behind Caleb in May.
Top 5 in Superflex.
Superflex, yeah.
Okay.
Specifically.
Right. Yeah, specifically.
And I would say in the NFL draft too, probably. he's going to go there, yeah.
Yeah, he's going to get great draft capital. We already assumed that. I mean, between these quarterbacks, probably you're talking now, they're talking the first 4 picks possibly.
Maybe.
And for sure 4 of the first 5 with some trades happening. We could see a mad rush of quarterbacks on day one. And of course, that's exactly what you want to see in a Superflex. You want the draft capital because then at that point, it doesn't matter what they do on the field. I mean, we see that with Trevor Lawrence. It doesn't matter what they do on the field. The draft capital is going to hold for a quarterback for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Brian, what's your thoughts on Jaden Daniels?
I'm a big Daniels supporter. You could definitely, to me, you could take a coin flip between May and Daniels, but I was lucky enough to get him in a Devy league like 3 years ago when he was Arizona State. And so I'm definitely for sure and happy. But it all depends. I mean, like Steve was talking about, he's got him projected for the most fantasy points, but it always depends. Like we said, 4 or 5. What team are you going to?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as an example, the Bears are drafted off season, picked up Deontay Johnson, already had DJ Moore, so they got some good pieces. So it's always going to depend on what team are you going for as to where those fantasy points are going to come from. And if you go to somebody that doesn't have a lot of offensive skill talent, you're probably not going to succeed that early anyway. So,
well, that brings me to the question. You brought up Stephen. You brought up the rushing ability, and I've heard many people compare his game at least to Anthony Richardson. My concern with that is Jaden Daniels is only 210 pounds. They're basically the exact same height.
Maybe 210. Is that what he weighed at? I feel
that's what his weight is on DLF. So, but Anthony Richardson weighed in at 244.
Yeah, they're
huge difference.
Goodness.
Huge difference. So if the rushing upside is not there for Jaden Daniels for fantasy, how bad does that hurt him?
A lot. Yeah, I mean that's the reason I would be taking him that high in a superflex draft. Would be a lot of the rushing production, especially if he gets landed. Like, let's say he goes to Washington. I'm really concerned about that landing spot. A really bad offensive line, a guy that takes a ton of sacks. We saw what kind of happened to Sam Howell last year. Not that they're the same quality of prospect, they're not, but Jaden Daniels has that concern with the sacks, and then you can't just put him behind this terrible offensive line and expect him to do great things. I don't think so. I think that'd be a tough landing spot. And then if you're telling me his rushing production goes away for whatever reason, then yeah, that's a huge problem.
Brian, what's the best landing spot in your mind for Jaden Daniels?
Maybe the Vikings.
Ooh, okay. They'd have to move up to come get him, though. They have to spend a lot of draft capital to go get him.
Yeah, because they're picking
11.
Where are they at right now in the draft?
11,
they're at 11 right now. But I think they traded with Houston, I believe, to get the 23. So they've got 11 and 23, I believe it is.
Yeah.
And I don't think 11 and 23 are going to get you up into that top 3.
Probably not.
CBS had a mock draft today where they moved up to the 4th spot to get a quarterback. So I don't know. I mean, maybe having lost Cousins, maybe they'll do some trading moving.
That's very
into
possible.
The draft.
And that might be the spot they have to go, and then just whoever's left go get them.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's Arizona at 4.
Right.
They got Kyler Murray, so they can afford to drop back to 11. Probably still end up with one of the wide receivers. Get the 23, and probably a second or probably a third round to go with that, maybe for them to drop back that far. Very good possibility. Stephen, what's your best landing spot for Jaden Daniels?
He just feels like a Raider. I don't think the Vikings obviously is a great spot for any quarterback. I don't think maybe that's the guy that the Vikings would want because I feel like they want a guy that's going to drop back and pass a ton, which Daniels, you miss out with some of the rushing that he does. But the speed, I think it'd just be fun if he was a Raider. It just feels like he'd be a Raider. So I'm going to go with the Raiders.
I think that'd be a great landing spot. All right, let's move on to the next guy. Drake May, University of North Carolina, 21 and a half years old, just a little bit older than 21 and a half, rather. 6'4", 223, QB3 per DLF, and the ADP of 4.0. Brian, Drake May, tell me about him. He's right around the corner from your house.
Yeah, he is. Let's just say he had a much better 2022 than 2023. That's one thing I didn't said. North Carolina lost some Josh Downs and some other good receivers off that 2022 team. So maybe we can give that most of the blame for that reason. He just like Daniels, he does offer some upside from the running game. Not as much by any means, but he certainly had a good career rushing for North Carolina. So you like the dual threat quarterback. So that's kind of like the common thing anymore. The Jalen Hurts type of quarterback and for fantasy or Lamar Jackson, where they're quite a bit of rushing is important to get to the top 10. And so May's solid there, but I wish he would have had a better year last year. But the size and arm strength are definitely pluses for him. So Steven and I haven't twisted around. I'm like DLF. I've got him second, third, and then Daniel second. But I think you could put him in the same tier and be okay.
Yeah, Jamie, I see you in the chat there. Appreciate you hopping in with us. This comment, Cecil Lemony had multiple sources telling the Vikings prefer May over Daniels. Now, question for you, Steven, before I give you a chance to give your take on Drake May here. As soon as I saw this comment from Jamie, it popped in my head. It was like, why wouldn't you want a true passer over a dual threat when you have the weapons that the Vikings have in JJ? I mean, they've had it, of course, with Kirk Cousins, where he's basically a pocket passer, but you do have with Drake May a little bit of rushing ability. They're able to scramble. He's not a statue in that pocket.
Yep.
But you have the JJ, you have the Addison, you have Hawk, and you add in an Aaron Jones. I think Drake May fits better at the Vikings.
Yeah, I think he fits a lot better with what the Vikings want to do, which is a ton of drop back passing. I think you would rather have May than Daniels if that's sort of the system that you're trying to run there too. And also, I think Drake May, like Brian said, deep ball accuracy is really good for Drake May. Wouldn't you want to pair that with, Addison and Justin Jefferson? That's kind of the guy that I
mean,
would
they're okay.
They're okay. Yeah, exactly. But I think if you can't get Caleb, which they can't, I'd rather have Caleb in this class, but I really like Drake May. I guess his stock has been falling a lot, at least like on the mock drafts, even in
hello
drafts.
CJ Stroud, how are you?
I don't get it. I really like Drake May, and I don't really see a ton of the downsides. And I think the context, like Brian said, is important. This last season, his best receiver was Tez Walker, and not like a huge knock on Tez Walker, but the situation for Jaden Daniels, like he's going to go from a better receiver group in college than he's going to be wherever he goes in the pros, most likely. And that's just not going to be the case for May. So I think
unless he ends up in Washington.
Yeah.
With a McLaurin and with Dotson. So,
but he had 2 first round. I mean, yeah,
you're right. He had 2 first rounders. I think LSU just puts out first round wide receivers.
Yeah.
At least over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But tell me about Drake May real quick while you have the chance.
So it's like his accuracy is above average, especially his deep ball accuracy, high ADOT. So like you'd like to see that. He throws over the middle of the field really well, which is something that I always talk about every time I have an opportunity. That efficiency throwing the ball over the middle of the field, I think, is really important. Like I said, the context of his receivers not as good as some of his other QBs in this class. Decent scramble rate, kind of like what Brian said, not like 100th percentile like Daniels is, but he can run a little bit. He does take a high number of sacks, but again, not as much of an outlier as Daniels. Really good big time throw rate from PFF, really good turnover worthy play rate. You like to see both of those too. And I guess I just don't get why he's falling. Yeah, he's my QB2. I like him a decent bit above Daniels. If I was an NFL team drafting an actual quarterback.
I didn't realize he was 6'4", and that's even more impressive to me with everything. Drake May hate has to stop. I mean, this time last year, everybody was in love with him. And yes, I get it. He had a down year. But like Brian said, like Steven said, he lost just about every playmaker he had over the last 2 years. So, we sit here as analysts that want to give, this player or that player a pass because they didn't have the weaponry around them. This guy didn't either in his senior year. If he'd have come out last year, he'd have been, an earlier pick than what everybody's wanting to give him now. So Drake May's the Drake May hate has to stop, and it has to stop ASAP. Brian, best landing spot for Drake May, and you cannot say the Vikings.
Man, why not where Sam Howell went and put him with the Washington Commanders?
Well, I mean, I guess that's fair. I mean, Steven and I agree that the Vikings is probably the better fit for his play style. And I think that's something, too, that, the NFL, at least OCs and this new generation of head coaches has come around to, instead of going and trying to make this square quarterback fit into my round hole, let me go get the round quarterback that already fits in my round hole. Right?
Yeah.
Or a square quarterback that fits in my square hole. I don't want to try to make somebody do something they can't. They're spending all this money, this high draft capital. and they want him on the field right away, but you're not giving him any chance to learn the system. Go get somebody that already knows this style of system or can fit this style of system. And I think that is something that the NFL is ultimately trying to move to.
Who's currently picking number 3? I know the Cardinals are at 4 and
New
the
England.
Commanders are at 2.
It's the Patriots.
Yeah,
Patriots. I don't think anybody's a good fit for the Patriots offense. So.
I was just gonna say, and you would be banned from the Gambit if you sent a quarterback there, because that would hurt everybody's feelings.
Yeah, and I also really like Jacoby Brissett, as I've made clear before. So I kind of want him to have a chance for a year to play, and I wouldn't feel good about putting a rookie quarterback there. That's a tough spot. They don't really have much to work with.
No, I would feel bad for any quarterback that has to play for there. I'd like to do the John Elway from 1982, where he disowned a team to go to the Broncos. So.
Or Eli, yeah.
Classic Eli Manning too, yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next guy. JJ McCarthy out of Michigan, 21 years old, 6'2", 219, QB4 per DLF, and an ADP of 7.5. Steven, JJ McCarthy.
I didn't realize his ADP was already that high. But yeah, he's been rocketing up.
All the hype that there's a possibility that he could go 2. There's a possibility that if he ends up falling to 11 overall, and the Vikings do get him, or the Vikings move up and get him, with that weaponry that the Vikings have, skyrocketing up rookie mocks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I took him in the Armchair Fantasy Show last night. I took him at the 108 in a super flex mock. And I think that's pretty consensus. It seems like, based off of his ADP, that's probably where he's going to go. But I mean, I like that spot. He had really good accuracy in college, but on 4th percentile attempts. And that's sort of the thing that keeps getting said with him. It's just, there just wasn't a ton of reps to look at. And a lot of that's the system, and a lot of that's how much success they had. They're running the ball a lot with a ton of success. If you look at his splits by pass attempts by quarter, I think only like 14% of his attempts came in the 4th quarter. They just didn't have to pass that much in order to win, which isn't his fault, but also you don't get to see a ton of what he has to offer. But on those small number of attempts, he had a pretty good average depth of target, pretty deep, kind of slow time to throw, just like all of the other quarterbacks in this class. Pretty average scramble rates, pressure to sack rates, nothing kind of stands out there. And he had good, kind of like May, good big time throw rate, good turnover worthy play rate. You like that, but just not a ton of data to see either way, whether it'll translate or not. But it seems like the NFL likes him.
Yeah, the NFL and teams love him right now. That throw that he made the other day just put Twitter in a tailspin when the video came out on that. I think one of the things with JJ McCarthy, and we're having a hard time trying to figure out what he is, what kind of player he can be, very much like you said. Jim Harbaugh has a square hole, and he put JJ McCarthy, a square person, into that square hole, and it fit perfect. He did exactly what Jim Harbaugh asked him to do at Michigan. No more, no less. Didn't try to be hero ball. Didn't try to, win games, but he didn't lose games.
No,
right?
He won a lot of games. Yeah.
But the issue is everybody hates him because he went undefeated, won a national championship, and only played an average of 3 quarters a game.
Yep.
I don't know. Doesn't seem like it's a bad deal for me. Put a ring on it, like they say. Brian, what you got on JJ McCarthy?
Well, one thing to keep in mind about McCarthy is he's the youngest of these top tiered quarterbacks. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
presumably upside there. Other thing that he's very statistically surprising. So this past year he had 332 pass attempts and 22 touchdowns. And in 2022, he also had 332 pass attempts and 22 touchdowns.
That's wild.
Not going to get that symbolism very often, I don't think. And this past year in 2023, his completion percentage did go up some. So he seems to be maturing at the college level, even though he was not given many chances. So, there's a lot of upside here. And to me, in regard, I don't see him being ranked above my top 3 quarterbacks at this point in time, or probably even the next couple of years, but the upside may be there, especially depending upon the landing spot for him. Maybe it is the Vikings. So,
well, yeah, and that
somebody's got to go to the Vikings.
Well, yes, somebody has got to go to the Vikings. Brian Ford hopping in with JJ McCarthy as a square.
Yeah, I was like, are you
Love it.
saying that because he looks like a Hollister model from back in the day, or like...
Yeah, no, I just, my square and round and triangle holes that these coaches fit in. That was, and then yeah. So now that's gonna be that's gonna be out there on the Twitter machine, and I'm sure that somebody's gonna come at me. So come at me, Twitter, for calling JJ McCarthy a square. It's okay. It's okay. Where would you like to see him go? You said the Vikings, right, Brian?
I'll be honest. I just would if I was in the college level right now, the team I would want to go play for the most is the Vikings.
Yeah, fair.
That's fair. I got a surprising one for you because of his age, because I think he does have a bit of a learning curve, and I think he can learn. The Vikings system is very much the same as the system I'm going to talk about here, but going to the Rams.
I thought that's
sit a year behind Matthew Stafford. It's still the McVay system. You still have Cooper Kupp. You possibly for at least another year or two. You got Puka. There's still some players there. No, it's not the wide receiving core or the weaponry that the Vikings are going to give you, but we don't know what the Rams are going to be in 2 years, 3 years. I think sitting and learning the Rams, that might be the right situation for JJ McCarthy.
That's a good point
for him, but I just don't think the Rams will be able to get up there. Or
no,
yeah.
No,
but it's a good spot for sure.
I didn't. Yeah, that was the question. Not where can he land? What is the best landing spot?
Yeah,
that's a good one for a guy like that that's younger than the others. Sitting for a year or two would be good. We're going to talk about a couple of other quarterbacks that really can't afford to sit for a couple of years. So.
Yeah, and Brian piping in right here. Many moons ago, when he had less steam, people liked the Rams as a spot. Sit behind Stafford, and then it's a good.
But that steam's been crazy. He's just
and that's this. If he would not have put out the videos, if he would have just done what some of these other quarterbacks did and not done the combine or whatever he did do that everybody loved, if he'd have just sat back, he wouldn't have made as much money. It would have been later. But I mean, situation, whatever. No, I listen, I'm looking at it as a place that the dude can live and have a great football career. Mm-hmm. I just don't know that it's going to be in Minnesota. I think they're going to rush him on the field.
And we all know, or at least last year, Stedman Bennett, I think, was a backup for the Rams. So, he's certainly can do better than that. So,
well, Stetson Bennett was the backup for the Rams until Baker Mayfield got. Oh, yeah, that was 2 years ago. Yeah, there's. I mean, no, it was Carson Wentz was there. They even had to go get Carson Wentz because Stetson Bennett had issues. All right, let's move on to the next guy, Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington, 23.9 years old. So call him 24, 6'2", 216, QB 5 on DLF. ADP of 16.1. Brian, Michael Penix Jr., what do you like? What do you don't?
Well, to give you any dual threat, he's not surprisingly not at all of a rusher. He's more of a pocket passer. You can't love the age because it kind of reminds you of the Chris Winkie of the 2023 class. So the right landing spot for him needs to be one where he can step in maybe at end of year or next year because by the 2025 old, so his timeline is going to be a lot less than some of the guys who.
Let me back you up for a second because I want to make sure of something you just said. You said 2023 Chris Winkie. Was it 2013 or were you meaning somebody else in 2023?
No, I'm just saying he's about the same age as Chris Winkie at the time he got drafted, and then Winkie was in the league for a couple of years, starter, and then gone. So,
yeah, the injury, he's got no PC or ACLs. He's got 0 ACLs left. He's had multiple ACL surgeries on both knees. It's kind of a scary thought.
Yeah.
Yep.
Steven. Michael Penix Jr.
Maybe that explains the rushing a little bit, but I saw that he ran a really fast 40. I think today. Was it today or surprisingly fast, given what Brian said that he has basically no scrambling in his career. But so I mean, as far as I can tell, it looks like his superpower is his ability to not take sacks. Like he is 99th percentile in pressure to sack ratio. It's actually pretty crazy, especially compared to the other quarterbacks in this class that are much, much, much lower down on the scale. But he's 6th percentile in scrambling. So, and for a guy that's pretty fast, I don't know. It's just really interesting, but he's got to have some like ability to manipulate the pocket because he's not taking sacks back there. But he's got average accuracy, but on, I think, the deepest average depth of target in the class. And he's got a pretty quick time to throw given that. So you like all those things. Pretty good big time throw rate, turnover worthy play rate. Like you like those things too. I think QB5 is right where he should go. I think it's a big tier break, obviously, after JJ McCarthy. But given that he's a pocket passer, I would love to have him back there behind on a team with some great offensive line where he can just throw bombs like he was doing in college. But yeah, I don't know. I think he'll have to sit behind somebody. Most likely, there's not enough landing spots for him to start, and kind of like what you both have already said, he's kind of old. That's less than ideal too.
Yeah,
Steven, do you have McCarthy kind of in a tier by himself?
Yeah, that's where I would have it. I mean, to me, it's Caleb, and then a tier break, and then I have May, Daniels tier break, McCarthy tier break, Penix. Nix. I like Penix a little bit more than Nix personally, but I can kind of see both.
That's kind of the way I've got it set up too.
The answer to your question on why he doesn't scramble is, and has such a fast 40, which was a 4.53, I think is what they came out with. Yeah. Right. So, but the answer to your question is that 40 is a straight line speed, and scrambling, you've got to be able to move, and there's where the ACLs come in.
Yeah, I guess I could see that too. Yeah, and maybe just concern for doing that as well would prevent him doing it.
Calvin Brown jumping in. He's super high on Penix, and he's not sure why the community as a whole seems to be so low on him. And I don't know that the community is so low on him. I just think there are these top four, when you've got the Jaden Daniels, the Caleb Williams, the Drake May, the JJ McCarthy, where do you fit him in? I mean, you're not putting him in front of any one of those, are you? Is there any way you can? Any of your numbers, Steven, when you're looking at your charts, any of your numbers have Penix ahead of any four of them in any category?
I mean, the pressure to sack rate is the one. And I like that one because it is sticky and it does translate a little bit to the NFL. And he's really, really, really good at it. Like, you can't overstate it enough how impressive he was at that. But I mean, again, the QB analytical stuff is really tough. I'm much less confident on the data stuff for quarterbacks than I am for running backs or wide receivers. I think a lot of the film people that I respect, which I am not necessarily one of them, I just watch highlights. I can say that pretty definitively. I'm not grinding the tape. But it seems like part of the reason they don't like Penix is when the pocket does break down and he needs to come up with some creative kind of throw or it's off structure, he's not as good at that. Definitely not as good as Caleb, who is like, superpower for him at doing that. But that seems to be the thing that they knock him for, as far as I can tell. But
one thing I'd like to add, the Penix is one of those guys that you can't really put a niche for. So over the last, say, 10 years, you've had the tall, somewhat mobile quarterback. You've had the dual threat quarterback. Well, Penix on the small side, he didn't have. He's one of those guys you're really just trying to. He's got what we've seen recently, and I think that's why he gets a big knock. So.
Yeah, I think all that's fair. We got our very own research department, Cairo Sindra, checking in. He does not like McCarthy as a tier or in a tier above Nix and Penix personally. I get it. Kyle, I don't know how to tell you this, but the NFL says that McCarthy is maybe in maybe QB2 in this class.
I hope that a lot of that is just smoke and that May goes ahead of McCarthy. That's my personal hope. I kind of get it from Kyle, though. I mean, the sample size is really small, and that's not McCarthy's fault. I think a lot of people are blaming him for that. I mean, I don't know. What are you supposed to do? They were winning a ton of games and by running the ball and up a lot in the fourth quarter. But yeah, sample size concerns for sure. But I think given that it's so tough on the data side for quarterbacks, I've done a lot of work on it, and I haven't really come up with anything that's really amazing. I think you trust the draft capital, and it seems like he's going to get a much better draft capital than both Penix and Nix.
No, and he brings up a great point here. I mean, we're talking, this is what we're hearing. This is what we're hearing.
Sure.
And if, the owners meeting just happened, but hell, we were all told that Malik Willis was going to go in the top of the draft too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So there's a great possibility. I mean, we're still a month away. We're still four weeks away, like I said earlier, from tonight of finding out, but yes, absolutely, Kyle, 100%, absolutely correct. We won't know what the NFL is actually going to do until, the 25th of April. So we can sit here and assume.
And the sad thing is we won't know.
Go ahead, Brian.
And the other sad thing is we really won't know how these quarterbacks do until probably 2025. I mean, first year is always kind of a trial and error, and maybe you have one stand out, but
no,
there aren't too many quarterbacks.
I think there's one that we're
like
fixing to talk about that we're going to find about real freaking quick, and that's Caleb Williams out of Southern Cal, 22 and a half years old, 6'1", 214, QB1 per DLF, and just about everybody consensus rankings, ADP 1.30. Steven, consensus QB1 for you too?
Yeah, I think so, both in the draft and for fantasy. I think the upside. The upside is insane. Like it's really elite level upside stuff. He's got really good accuracy. He's got strong career marks in big time throw rate, touchdown rate, adjusted yards per attempt, pretty much most stats you can come up with. Some negatives, kind of a below average depth of target. And he has what I would consider an outlier, really, really slow time to throw. Because I think he's, especially this last year, from what I can tell, the whole offense was on him. He was trying to make miraculous plays. And a lot of his highlights are him scrambling around for a ton of time and then making like an insane deep throw down the field. And it's amazing. You wonder how much of that magic NFL coaches will let him have. Like, will they try to force him? I say force him to play in structure, or do they give him some leeway to kind of make those kind of really long plays, and by long I mean time plays happen? But yeah, more nitpicky stuff, I think. So he definitely can take sacks too. He's 12th percentile pressure to sack rate. That's not ideal. Just curious to see how much of that NFL coaches let him play the way he wants to play, or do they force him to play in structure? But yeah, I think he's the one-on-one.
Yeah, I heard some of your negatives there, and I have to question you because I figured you would be one. No, I did not figure you would be one. Some of the negatives I'm hearing on Twitter about him are painted nails, and he has a pink phone. So none of that stuff bothers you, right?
I like that. I mean,
it doesn't bother me at all. I'm sitting here wondering, why is this a thing?
It shouldn't be. I think all of that stuff is let him do whatever he wants to do. It's not hurting anyone. And also, I think if you want to be, I think I saw Kyle Brandt, a really good video of him earlier today. I thought that was really fantastic, really well done. And I agreed with a lot of the points with, if you're expecting this guy to be a leader, leaders do their own thing and then have people want to follow them. I mean, I don't know. I think he said it really well. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. But yeah.
Yes, absolutely go watch that. And I'll find it and post it on Twitter. And you can get it off my Twitter here in an hour or so. Quarterbacks are quirky. We already know that. Let them be quirky, because the good ones, the very, very good ones, were all very quirky. They were all weird in their own little ways. If you're painting your nails, if you got a pink, who gives a damn what you have off the field?
Yeah.
As long as it's legal and you're not doing nothing to break the law and you perform on the field. And as fantasy, managers, we shouldn't even care as long as you're playing on Sunday.
Absolutely.
So stop with all the Twitter hate because he paints his nails. Who freaking cares?
It doesn't. I like that personally, but also, even if you don't, you shouldn't care.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't.
No, I think manicures and pedicures are definitely a big part of society. I mean, I know they're part of
listen, if you haven't had a pedicure, you are absolutely missing out. You are absolutely missing out. Go get that done right away. In fact, set an appointment for Good Friday. That's tomorrow. You're off. Brian, Caleb Williams, talk to me.
Not much else to say. My dad graduated from the University of Oklahoma, so he is out of USC, but he definitely should be the number one quarterback here. And the Bears have done a lot picking up John, also DeAndre Swift. Good. I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing in regards to backup quarterback, they'll be using the quarterback that stepped in, the young rookie last year that Gator was on.
The young rookie quarterback?
Yeah, you remember the guy that stepped in for Fields last year that came out of like a Division III school?
Tyson Bagent.
That was Kyle that got me on that guy. Taggett. I remember the name now. He had the one sleeve. His dad was a chef or something or other. Kyle, who was that? That was the backup for the Bears last year. I want to say
Tyson Bagent.
Tyson Bagent. There it is.
Yeah.
I kept saying I kept using the first name and last name and kept putting them together. So yeah, Tyson Bagent. That's it.
I'm guessing he'll be with the Bears in their quarterback rooms. So if Williams doesn't start day one, he could. So he might have a little bit of opportunity to grow, but we'll see. I don't know if they want Williams day one or not.
Probably.
No, you're not drafting him 1-1 and getting rid of Justin Fields and not plugging him on the field.
I feel like
whether it's whether it's Caleb Williams, whether it's JJ McCarthy, I don't care what quarterback they're taking at 1-1. They just shipped off their quarterback for peanuts because they couldn't find somebody to give them, the ransom they wanted. I think the smart move would have been to keep him for a year, sit Caleb for a year. But you can't do that nowadays, I guess, with the amount of money that they're investing in these guys. But look, they're getting the one thing the Bears did do this offseason, which we didn't see Carolina do last year after going and getting Bryce Young one. We haven't seen it very often in very many systems when they get the first overall pick is before they even go and take the pick. Build the game, or build the whole daggum lineup, the roster around what player you're taking at 1, and who gives a damn who else you take because you brought all these studs in. Maybe they win a Super Bowl, maybe they don't, but at least they're giving him every opportunity to show what he can do on the field.
Yeah,
and what that's going to translate into fantasy for us is we want that. We want the opportunity. Number one. They're giving him good weapons. They're not just throwing, 24 Tutu Atwells out there. They're giving him Keenan Allen and DJ Moore and going and getting DeAndre Swift. So they're building up an offensive line to hopefully protect him a little bit better. For fantasy, we want that. We want every, little pieces of that. Now, what I'm afraid as far as when it comes to Dynasty is people are going to get overextended into this lineup. And I don't think you should be doing that. Get a piece of here and there. Maybe not the same piece on each line, or, each roster, but don't overextend yourself. You don't need Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, and Caleb Williams. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And I misspoke about Deontay. He went to Carolina, did he not?
Yes, he did. And they finally got Bryce Young, a receiver who can separate, not like ancient Adam Thielen and Jonathan Mingo, like kind of what Gator was saying earlier. Like, at least they got one, but you actually prefer the weapons.
Yeah,
in Chicago.
That's hurt me so much. Since Deontay was my favorite player, so I have to apologize for that.
Yeah, that's fine. Yes, Calvin, that's exactly what we were just saying. Can have supplied Caleb Williams with great talent, is set up to succeed. Now, whether that's a Super Bowl playoff, whatever that is. I don't even think that is ultimately what they're doing. I think what they're doing is giving him every opportunity to not be Peyton Manning year 1, Trevor Lawrence year 1, Bryce Young year 1. They're setting him up to be a CJ Stroud year 1 type of deal. Give you a couple weapons, go do your thing. Let's move on.
And maybe they take another receiver at 9.
And that's very possible, depending on. I mean, they've got what 4 picks in the top 90. I think it is. It's crazy.
but then they don't have like a 5th, 6th, or 7th, right?
Who cares?
Yeah, no,
F them
agreed.
picks, they say.
Yeah, at least they have 1 and 9. That's
okay.
a lot of capital.
They gave up their 4th round pick. They got Keenan Allen for that. Okay, I think in the NFL, I'd rather have Keenan Allen if I got a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely.
So okay, that's who they drafted with the 4th round pick. They drafted Keenan Allen. That seems like a fair deal to me.
Yeah,
from the Bears. We all know he's going 1-1, or we all assuming. Again, we don't know.
I'd be very surprised if he didn't.
Yeah, he's going 1 to Washington. Other quarterbacks that we need to bring up that maybe don't need to talk too much on. Bo Nix out of Oregon, 24 years old, 6'2", 214, QB 6 per DLF, and an ADP of 15.5, basically. Let's look at this. Let's just go like this. Best landing spot for Bo Nix. Steven.
I would say the Bengals. The Bengals seem to really, based off what they do with Joe Burrow, they really like these kind of like short passes. And that's all Bo Nix did in college. So I think he would fit really nicely with that. Really good accuracy, but really, really, really low average depth of target. Doesn't take sacks. Just like snap the ball, get the ball out. And I feel like that's what Joe Burrow does a ton of. So I think he could learn from Burrow. And obviously he wouldn't start with Burrow there, but I think it'd be a good fit for him and the system.
Brian, you got a good landing spot for Bo Nix for you?
Not really, but I'll just throw out the Ravens for whatever.
Did you say the Ravens?
The Ravens,
okay.
yeah.
Right.
Lamar will eventually need a backup, and Huntley proved last year that he's even though I thought he was a couple of years prior, that he's not really the answer for their backup. So,
well, Huntley has moved on, has he not?
Has
he? Did he re-sign? I'm not 100% sure.
Moved on. I think is it Malik Washington? Is that the backup now?
Okay. Yeah. So they probably gonna grab
Pro Bowl QB Tyler Huntley though. Put some respect on his name.
Put some respect on that man's name. That's a fact. Spencer Rattler, South Carolina.
So who's the back in Baltimore now?
I think it's Malik Washington. I believe that's his name.
Oh well, don't know the name.
Yeah, it's
Spencer Rattler, South Carolina, 23.5 years old, 6'2", QB 8 per DLF, and an ADP of 33.5. Best landing spot for him, Brian, you think would be
Pittsburgh.
I knew you. You know what? I knew for some ungodly reason. I knew you were going to say Pittsburgh because you need another quarterback.
We did
because you don't have any right now.
Exactly.
As John Gruden would say, if you have 4 quarterbacks, you have zero.
Yeah.
We need 12.
Yes. Well, I mean, I guess from the rumor mill, Fields isn't going to play quarterback anyway. He's going to be a running back, from what I hear. Whatever. Steven, best landing spot for Spencer Rattler for you?
I don't know. I put the Chiefs down, just like kind of like osmosis with Mahomes, and hope some of that magic can like rub off on him. That's my thought process here. So I'll say Chiefs and just like hope that he gets a little bit of Mahomes on him. I don't know.
Yeah, when I first put this up there, and my immediate thought, of course, being a Tampa fan, I'm like, well, I mean, I wouldn't mind having him in Tampa as a backup,
sure.
Right? But then I look at it, I'm like, okay, well, Baker's going to be there his deal is for 3 years. He's probably going to be there for at least 2 of those years, right? And then I'm like, well, that Spencer Rattler will be 26 years old at that point.
They probably would just want someone else.
And I mean, he could go in the 3rd round, but I think it's going to be more like a 4th round pick. And Tampa may go ahead and take that reach,
sure.
in the 4th round. I don't think they'll do it in the 3rd round, but the 4th round, maybe. But the more I think about it, I'm like, I don't even know if Tampa's the right spot. Maybe a Miami behind Tua. That would be an interesting spot there. But let's move over.
Like Tua superpower though, which is like somehow throw the ball really quickly, but also deep, like to get it to Hill and Waddle. Like, I don't know if he has that in him, but I don't know.
I mean, he played pretty good at Oklahoma until the whole Caleb Williams thing happened.
One thing I'd like to throw out that's off the kind of us, none of us have put him in a really bad landing spot with a really crappy team, so that's nice.
No, I don't think and I think that's the biggest thing is you'll see these top quarterbacks go to what we assume are crappy teams because they're picking so early. But guys like Bo Nix, guys like Spencer Rattler, they're going to end up on a decent team.
Yep.
because they're going to go later, whatever round it is. It's not going to be, they're not going to end up in the, Chicago Bears, whether teams up there well, maybe they will end up in New England. Who knows what New England's going to do at 3, but
I feel bad for them if they do.
Yeah.
For the quarterback, not the team.
Yeah, the quarterback. I don't feel bad for the Patriots.
That's enough about talking about Patriots and getting a quarterback. Let's move over to the running backs. Again, these are in alphabetical order. I used March's rookie ADP from DLF. Depending on who you talk to, every single person has a different RB1 for this class.
Yep.
So that's why I put them in alphabetical order. That way there is no biases, even though I have my own. And I'll let you know where those lie.
Yep.
So let's talk about Braylon Allen, Wisconsin, 20 years old, 6'1", 235, just a freaking, what are those balls, the hammer balls that come through and knock down buildings? The
wrecking ball.
Wrecking balls. Just a daggum wrecking ball. 4.40. RB5 per DLF. ADP of 20.9. Brian, Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin.
Okay, I've got him a little bit lower than DLF. I've got him 7th. I'm a little surprised by the 40 time. That's impressive, but from all accounts, he seems to be kind of an early downs back, red zone kind of player that we're looking at. I forget the number of exact touchdowns he had in college. It was either 36 or 56, but it was a lot. But so he's going to make a perfect early down touchdown kind of guy, kind of like I don't know, Gus Edwards or somebody like that, maybe like a Derrick Henry early in his career where he didn't catch passes.
I don't know. You said he's going to be a red zone back. I mean, I don't hate that for fantasy. Can I get him like a Jamal Williams of last year or 2 years ago?
Well, Jamal Williams' numbers are kind of tainted.
17 touchdowns. That's all that mattered.
Exactly.
I don't care that he only had 18 touches. I don't care that he had 0 receptions. He had 17 touchdowns.
I guess the answer to that one would be, is he going to get on a team that scores 17 touchdowns? So the landing spot's going to be very important for him.
Yep.
Agreed. Yeah. Steven, Braylon Allen.
Yeah, I'm actually in lockstep with Brian on the ranking. I was having him as my RB7, so a little bit lower than consensus, it seems like. I guess just in general, I have 3 main boxes I want running backs to check. The first one is, are you drafted at pick 100 or earlier? That's usually the cutoff that I have. Are you a really good receiving back, like efficient and a lot of volume there? And then third, are you a really elusive rusher? Those are the 3 boxes that I would like you to check. I think Braylon Allen checks like 1.5 of them. I think all the draft capital, but the receiving work is really not great throughout his career. And he's also has kind of like poor explosiveness, which is surprising given that 40 time. I mean, that's really, really quick, but he had pretty good tackle avoidance, elusiveness, yards after contact, which given his size, not a huge surprise there. But and another positive, he is really young. Like you said, not just one of the youngest running backs, one of the youngest players in this draft class. Really, really young. You like that too. My stuff, the closest comp for him is AJ Dillon. That feels right. And that's not even taking into account size necessarily, because my stuff doesn't include any of the combine results. And so AJ Dillon still is best comparable just based off his production and play style. So that just feels like a good comp. Like it feels like I could see that for him.
And what that tells me is Allen's got a pretty good floor, but the ceiling is going to be limited just like Dillon. So
yeah, the receiving is so important for fantasy specifically, and you just didn't see it. So not that he can't do it, he just didn't.
Yeah, to jump back real quick, Kyle jumping in here saying he thinks the Pats actually don't take a quarterback this year. That way, Jamie and Kyle's favorite quarterback. Who is it?
Is it Jacoby?
It is Jacoby.
You know, I'm a huge Jacoby fan too. I've already made that pretty clear. The guy is good. I mean, it's a bad spot for him though. I would like to see Jacoby play on an actual
Tyquan Thornton. Yeah.
Now, my question is, I've been a little out of the loop, but they've still got Zeppy, don't they?
Yeah.
Bailey Zappi. Yeah.
But he had a rough stretch there too after they benched Mac Jones.
Steven, best landing spot for Braylon Allen.
Like we said, I think ideally we like to see him on a team that actually scores touchdowns. I think the Bills would be kind of fun as an alternative to Josh Allen in the red zone. I think instead of kind of run James Cook out there, Braylon Allen is pretty suited for a goal line rusher. Maybe you save some of the tackling on Josh Allen close to the end zone. So he'd score a lot of touchdowns there, or could.
17?
I think he could still. I mean, do the Panthers even score 17 total touchdowns? Like the landing spot is going to be like tricky. The Bills, at least, is a team that can score a lot. So.
Let me ask you this. Dallas.
I think all these running backs, I could have put the Cowboys as the best landing spot because they just haven't.
I don't think it matters. I don't think if the Cowboys take a running back in the second round, that particular running back, I don't care if he is RB5 right now, if he's RB2 right now, if he's RB7 right now, 8 right now, it automatically vaults him into the RB1 and probably a first round pick in your rookie drafts.
The starters who? Dowdle, I guess,
or Deuce Vaughn, maybe
Dowdle, Vaughn. They've got another. I can't remember his name out of Florida. Can't remember his name right now, and I don't think it matters because I think Dallas may actually go get 2 or 3 running backs in this class.
I personally still love J.K. Dobbins. I'm willing to get hurt again on J.K. Dobbins. I would love him to sign with the Cowboys. I think that'd be great. But it would be interesting. It would definitely be interesting. Let's move over to Trey Benson out of LSU, 21.7 years old, 6 foot 215, 4.39 40. RB1 on DLF, ADP of 15. And this is the exact point that we're making. This rookie class of RBs, there's nobody in the first round right now. Again, landing spot absolutely is going to matter. Any one of these running backs could move into the first round depending on landing spot. But for the most part right now, you're talking about RB1 on DLF. He is my RB1, but he's still not going to the 15th pick overall. Even in a 14-team league, he's still second round. Steven, Trey Benson. Yeah, and I think rightfully so. And we'll talk about it on the next show with the wide receivers. There's so many good wide receivers in this class. I think I get it. Like the running backs should start going in the second round, in my opinion. But I get Benson as RB1. He's my RB2 behind another guy that we're going to talk about later. I have him at RB2. I can see the argument for RB1, though, I guess is what I'm trying to say, like, especially with the injury of the guy that I'm going to talk about later. But he had below average receiving numbers, but they're not outlier bad. And they also improved over his time in college, especially his last year at Florida State. So you'd like to see some improvement there. Really good tackle evasion and elusiveness, stuff I really like. PFF gave him elite kind of career rush grades. You like to see that. And his production indicates that he could be a true 3-down back, and there just aren't very many of them in this class. I think you could put an argument that there's only probably like 2 that you can see for sure right now could be true 3-down backs. So yeah, I really like Benson. He's my RB2.
Yeah, some people don't like his vision. And I'm not saying his vision is perfect because he sees the hole. I think sometimes he's just too patient. He wants a bigger hole. And instead of getting that bigger hole, just take the hole that's given to you and push it upfield. There's times where he gets 2 yards and he could have gotten 5.
Yeah.
There's times, but his receiving stuff is good. He's good out of the backfield. Again, going back to what you said, a true 3-down back. Brian, Trey Benson.
Well, I think it's important to clarify that there is no Bijan, and I'm fairly high on Benson. Now we got the other one we'll talk about momentarily, so I'm fine with Benson.
All right, then we will quickly move over to best landing spot. Steven, you have the Cowboys. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to put the Cowboys a lot, but it's an open roster where it's a good team, and I think he could be a pretty good fit. Like he could be a 3-down back there. I'd be very excited about Benson if he got second round draft capital for the Cowboys, like wheels up for Trey Benson. That'd be that would be awesome.
Yeah, I love that landing spot, and I'm sure the Cowboys fans around the world are rejoicing if that happens. Vandy Grad, you good with the Cowboys as a landing spot for Trey Benson?
Sure. Like we said, the Cowboys need something. So
They could use anything right now. All right, so we will move on to the next player.
Yep.
And that is Jonathan Brooks out of Texas, 20.7 years old, 6 foot 216. Him and Benson are almost the exact same size, man. It's so close, so close. 4.45 40, RB2 per DLF, ADP of 15.4. Again, these guys are so close. It's truly. There was a post put out the other day on Twitter that Jonathan Brooks looked a lot like Bijan Robinson. Do not believe that post. Go back and look at film from Bijan Robinson and then look at film with Jonathan Brooks. They are completely two different people, and Jonathan Brooks is nowhere near what Bijan Robinson is.
And that's okay. Not everyone's Bijan.
It's absolutely fine. But don't get steered wrong that Jonathan Brooks is Bijan Robinson. That's not the case. Brian, Jonathan Brooks.
He said he's not Bijan Robinson. He was on the same with Robinson and Roschon Johnson and didn't get many carries. I like him. He's a potential 3-down back, just like Benson is, and that's my top bit of a gap after that. So,
where do you have Brooks in your rankings right now? Where did you say you had him?
He off the top, the other one I really can't remember.
Okay,
they're just to me they're in the
Steven,
same tier
Jonathan
by themselves.
Brooks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So agreed with Brian. I think our running back rankings probably look pretty similar. But yeah, I Brooks at RB1. But a lot of that, the biggest downside is the medical stuff. I mean, he tore his ACL in November. That's pretty late season ACL injury. I've heard all over he's either going to be perfectly fine by training camp. That would be surprising, or it's a complete redshirt year as his first season in the NFL. That's a big difference, and I don't know which one it's going to be. So definitely would want hopefully get some injury kind of clarification before you need to draft him. But yeah, I think he is the guy, the only guy in this class that I see that checks all three boxes that I talked about earlier. Efficient runner, really good receiving work and efficient there. And then he's going to get draft capital too. So again, the big thing is the injury stuff. I got him in the 208 and that Superflex mock that we did last night on Armchair Fantasy Show. Pretty happy about that. Yes, getting your RB1 in the 208 is interesting. But injury stuff is a real concern.
Well, it's because Trey Benson went, and then I took Trey Benson being my RB1 went right before me, and then I took my RB2, which is Marshawn Lloyd, and then that gave you Jonathan Brooks. So that's how you ended up with your RB1, which is failure, process of elimination. Again, like I said at the beginning when we started talking about running backs, depending on who you talk to, these running back rankings are fluctuate all over the board. So, best landing spot in your mind, Brian, for Jonathan Brooks?
Dallas. We'll get either Benson or Brooks here one. So
yeah, it'd be really nice if he went to Dallas. I know that the Cowboys team doctor did his surgery as well. I know that's been kind of out there too. So Dallas might have a little bit more information on the medical stuff than other teams. I would feel even better about it if Dallas drafted him, if they felt confident that he would be okay. He definitely became RB1 just by being drafted in Dallas, but then has that second benefit of like, okay, maybe the injury is not as he could play the season and not just have like a complete redshirt year.
And if Dallas passes on him for whatever reason, or doesn't get a chance to draft him, and a team and another team does, that team I'm hoping is a year away because or doesn't need a running back for a year.
Yeah.
So that way he can rest this injury, right? My landing spot for him would be San Francisco behind Christian McCaffrey. Let him sit for the year.
He'd be fun,
or possibly.
It'd be fun if CMC ever goes down. He's also getting a little older too. So
correct. So that was with the injury and everything else. I think that would be a great landing spot for him. Let's talk about this next guy, Blake Corum out of Michigan, 23.5 years old, 23.3 years old to be exact, 5'8", short, 205, 4.5, 340, RB3 per DLF, and an ADP of 18.9. Steven, Blake Corum, is he really a running back or is he more of a fullback?
I don't know about that, but I feel like I am. I don't want to be the Blake Corum hater, but I guess I am. I've got him as like my RB7 or something in that range. I don't really get it by looking at his stats. The one thing you really like is the volume. He had a ton of rushing volume, and that typically does correlate with more rushing volume in the NFL, so that's good. Good yards per attempt and really good PFF grade too, but really bad, actually, like near the bottom of the entire class in the following: tackle avoidance, elusiveness, yards after contact, and explosive run rate. Kind of yikes on that third box that I usually look at, and his receiving volume and efficiency, both bad. So he kind of just checks the draft capital box. Having said that, when the Chargers take him with decent draft capital and he's like their feature back, I'm going to be moving him up. So if that happens or when that happens, it seems like that's what probably is likely to happen. I'll be moving him up. But yeah, I mean, lots of volume rushing, not necessarily efficient at it. No volume and no efficiency receiving. He kind of just has the draft capital. So I'm not the biggest Corum guy.
Well, you say he has draft capital. He doesn't have draft capital yet, but that's
assuming. Yeah, assuming he does. But we'll find out in a month.
You brought up a great point. Now, we say this all the time when we're talking about careers ending and are they a Hall of Famer? You were talking about the volume that he got at Michigan. Well, we already talked about the volume that he was getting because J.J. McCarthy and that Michigan offense was up by so many times. They really didn't do anything but run the ball in the fourth quarter. That's not going to translate into the NFL.
Especially when you see that yards after contact number is not great, because I personally put a lot of the yards before contact on the offensive line or the scheme, and the yards after contact are, I think, in my opinion, owned by the running back. And so when you see that poor yards after contact, you're like, was a lot of the great, the pretty good yards per attempt, was a lot of that the offensive line or the scheme, not necessarily how good Blake Corum was. But when you watch the highlights, you do see him move the pile, which is impressive for a guy that's pretty, on the smaller end. But yeah, definitely not my preferred style of running back. I like guys that are elusive in space that have a lot of really efficient receptions. And I feel like that's not Corum. Brian,
your thoughts on Blake Corum?
I'm right there with Steven. I've got him basically in a tier with Allen. They both remind me of, let's hope their careers don't end this way, but like Big Ten plotters like Ron Dane. So, yeah, I'm not a fan.
Not a fan. Steven said best landing spot is the Chargers. He's praying that Jim Harbaugh says the hell with it. We don't need wide receivers. Let's go get Blake Corum at 5 overall. That's what Steven said that. I did not.
You've seen some crazy tweets out there like they're going to trade Justin Herbert. It's like, no, like they're not going to trade Justin Herbert. But
Brian, best landing spot for Blake Corum.
I hate to be dull, but Chargers make sense since Harbaugh's coaching out there, and they got rid of Ed, so why not?
Yeah, it absolutely makes too much sense that it's got to be the Chargers. What, in round 44, somewhere in there?
Don't do that. They shouldn't.
It's not good.
They shouldn't, but yeah.
All right, let's move on. We will get off of the Blake Corum hate train, and we'll talk about Marshawn Lloyd out of Southern Cal. Went to USC. And then he went to the USC from South Carolina over to Southern Cal, 22.2 years old, 5'9", 220, a 4.4, 640, RB6 per DLF, and an ADP of 23.3. Brian, what do you like about Marshawn Lloyd? We lost him.
Darn. I can jump in.
I mean, an hour in, and he gets lost. So what do you love and what do you dislike about Marshawn Lloyd here?
So actually, I like Marshawn Lloyd. So he's RB6 ADP. I've got him as RB4. Like kind of similar to Brian. Tier break for me after Brooks and Benson. And so the RB3 and after that is sort of like still kind of up in the air. But I like Marshawn Lloyd a lot. My modeling stuff doesn't really like him that much, mostly because of his bad PFF grade. But a lot of that was from his first season at South Carolina.
Mhm.
And so it's like, okay, that's his first season. That's not the end of the world. He can get better. Kind of an average receiving profile, which is good enough. He has a near 100th percentile tackle avoidance and elusiveness. That's the stuff that, like, he has a superpower, and that's really, really fun. Also an elite explosive run rate and really good yards after contact. Like we talked about, yards after contact, you can kind of put on the running back a little bit there too. So he firmly checks 2 of the boxes, which is good enough basically for 3rd in the class. And he's not kind of an outlier bad at receiving either. So a guy that could have the potential to be a 3-down back, which again, not many of those in the class. I really like Marshawn Lloyd. It seems like more than consensus, I guess.
Brian, what do you like about Marshawn Lloyd?
I mean, he definitely has the upside to be a 3-down back. That's the most important thing. He's small. He's smallish. I don't love that. But once again, in this class, I mean, there's not one. You got the top 2 running backs, and then you got some hopefuls for upside, basically. So he's okay as right around your 2nd tier type of running back.
Yeah, I like I said last night, we were in the draft together, Steven, and Benson went off the board. I got mad at Jeff because that was an auto pick that Jeff selected. I was like, I was looking at Benson right there. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get Benson. Didn't get Benson, who was my RB1. Marshawn Lloyd is my RB2. I love, I take out that first year, his freshman year. It was South Carolina. That was a whole shitstorm mess over there in South Carolina at the time. I like what Marshawn Lloyd does as a running back. A little bit on the, when you say he's small, he's just small in stature, right? He's still 220. I mean, he's still thick. Be careful because if he ends up in the Cowboys, that's a whole other ball game right there. I love that landing spot for him. I want to whip through these last couple of ones. I want to talk about 2 or 3, maybe 3 more. I think I've got. I want to hit these real quick and then we'll get out of here. Let's talk about Tennessee's very own. Going just down the road from my boy Brian's here, going over to Jalen Wright, University of Tennessee, 21 years old, youngest one so far, I believe. 5'10", 210, 4.38 40, RB4 per DLF. And I think a lot of that is because of his speed and what he did at the combine. ADP of 19.8. Steven, Jalen Wright.
I really like Jalen Wright. So RB4, I'm actually surprised that he's that high. He's my RB4 as well. So right up there kind of with Marshawn Lloyd, whether it's him or Marshawn Lloyd, I'm kind of tossing up between the 2 for RB3 and RB4. But I think the downside for him is that he is like outlier level bad in his receiving marks. I think he had 2 targets on like 80 some routes run in 2022. It got better in 2023, but like really, really bad receiving marks in 2022. But what he has is explosion and elusiveness. So he's got that box checked in spades as a rusher. Elite tackle avoidance, elusiveness, yards after contact, explosive run rate. He's a really, really, at least according to the data, explosive and fun runner when he has the ball in his hands. Curious to see if he can do any of the receiving stuff. He got definitely improved sharply, but from an incredibly low base in 2023. So that's sort of the downside for him. But yeah, I like Jalen Wright.
Well, before I let Brian go about Jalen Wright, because we could be another hour just him talking about Jalen Wright. Jamie brings up he'd like to see Marshawn Lloyd on the Raiders, and I would not like to see that because that would get Zamir White completely out of the he's poof, there he's gone. But he would like to see Brooks at the Cowboys. Thoughts on Marshawn Lloyd to the Raiders, Brooks to the Cowboys?
So as someone who likes, does Brian want to go jump in on this one first, or I can talk about it?
Either one. Go ahead, Steven. Go ahead,
okay.
And then we'll get Brian after that.
Cool. So, yeah, I mean, as someone who really likes Zamir White, I would ideally not like to see Marshawn Lloyd there. I don't know if we'll get a chance to talk about him. I think Bucky Irving makes more sense to me for the Raiders. You kind of have a like thunder and lightning type situation. Zamir White's more of a kind of jacked up big guy. Bucky Irving would be kind of a fun complement to him. So I think I'd rather see him go there. But yeah, Brooks to the Cowboys, yes, 100%. Like I said earlier, it's double benefit. He's in a great spot. And then I think they have better medical information on him than other teams. that makes me even more confident that they feel good about where his ACL is. So.
And Jamie I think Jamie has now become Kyle's assistant here with the research stuff. It would be really cool to see Harbaugh draft Marvin Harrison Jr. since he threw Jim Harbaugh.
That's crazy.
Through Marvin Harrison Sr. his first ever TD pass. That's really cool. That is a really cool thought there.
Also, that would indicate that they're going to throw some passes if they're going to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. and not just run 1,000 times, and they keep Justin Herbert in a locked box.
100%. Brian, before you get on Jalen Wright, Marshawn Lloyd to the Raiders, Brooks to the Cowboys. Thoughts on those two that Jamie would like to see?
Yeah,
oh no,
Brian's frozen. Maybe
we froze him again.
No.
All right. Well, we will move on. We talked about, but the best landing spot we think for Jalen Wright would be.
I don't know. It's again probably the Cowboys.
yeah, but I do actually like your thought process with the next guy coming up.
Yeah.
With Bucky Irving out of Oregon, 26 years old.
Or 21.
There it goes. 26 years old, 5'9", 192. Look, this is a bit on the small size for me as a running back. Again, your thunder and this is your lightning part of it. 4.55, 40. RB7 per DLF, ADP of 32.2. I'm a little skeptical because of size. And that combine he had was as the kids say. Not good, Bob.
Not exactly. Really, really pretty bad. I mean, especially at that weight, you really want that 40 time to be a lot faster. 4.55 is okay if you're, 220 pounds, but not if you're 30 pounds lighter like Bucky Irving is. But if I was a genie and I could grant a wish to any player in the NFL draft, I would probably grant 4.3 speed to Bucky Irving because I would love to see that. I really like Bucky Irving. The biggest problems he has are size and athleticism, but if he was really, really fast, I would be so in on him. But it's because he's a really good receiver. He probably has the cleanest receiving profile of any running back in the class, which is really important. And he's actually has really good efficiency marks on his carries. He doesn't have a ton of carries, but really good, good tackle avoidance, elusiveness, even yards after contact. It's surprising given his size and speed. So if we could just grant any running back top end speed, it would be Bucky Irving for me. But it's tough when he's that slow.
Yeah, the problem for me with him is, look, he's undersized. He should be faster. He does have great receiving game, but the problem is, dude, he's going to be part of a committee no matter where he goes.
Yes. Yep.
He's not going to be the primary back. He's going to be more than likely he's going to be the third down back.
That's his role. I mean, he fit really well doing that.
I just don't understand why he's going so high in right now, of course, in these mock drafts when it comes to fantasy. I don't get it.
32. I mean, that's not the end of the world, I guess. Because you're getting to a point at that point, what wide receivers are going around him.
It's a dart throw. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. But still, that's a dart. I'm going to keep in my pocket.
It's a floor play, and maybe you
would rather
go for ceiling then. Yeah.
But that's the problem is there is no floor. The floor for him is an absolute zero because he's not getting any playing time because of his size, because of his speed. It's not there for me.
Yeah.
I like your landing spot here. You brought it up a second ago when we were talking about Jamie's comment. You have him as a compliment to Zamir Wright, in the Raiders system. But again, I mean, Zamir Wright showed last year he can catch the ball.
Yep.
So
he's not a zero receiving.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of compliment he's going to be other than on the sideline. Good job, man. Good job. Good job, man. Yeah. All right, let's get to the last one of the night. This is one, as our good friend Kyle says, you should say this in French. And ironically, he went to Notre Dame. Audric Estime, Notre Dame, 20.6 years old, 5'11", 221, 4'7", 140. RB8 per DLF, and an ADP of 31.2. I'm out. Go ahead.
I'm in. So I'm actually glad we have different opinions on him. I think the combine bad. 4.71 is ugh, that's like almost like you can roll him out bad. Pro day 4.58. Okay, I'm a little bit happier about that because that's one of the bigger things that I was concerned about was his speed, and then when he runs that at the combine, you're like, oh, bad receiving volume. You don't love that. But he was actually pretty efficient on the small number of routes that he ran. His yards per run, pretty good. There just weren't very many of them. Really good tackle avoidance, elite elusiveness, and yards after contact. Both stuff you like to see. Surprisingly good explosive run rate, given that top end speed that we're concerned about, and a really good PFF run grade as well. So if the draft capital's there, the pro day 40 time is a little better. At least he would check 2 of the boxes. And that's pretty good for this class. So yeah, I'm definitely higher than consensus on Estime.
Yeah, I don't do rankings, so he's still probably going to be pretty low for me. My issue with him is going back to what Brian said about who was it? It wasn't Jonathan Brooks. It might have been when he was talking about Braylon Allen, that he just seems like he's going to be a red zone back.
Yeah.
Right. Estime seems like he's just going to be a red zone back. Now he's going to have that. He's going to have that one-off season when he's sitting there in Cleveland and he gets, 14 touchdowns. But that's going to be 3 years from now. Right. And then you don't know his name beforehand. You don't know him after that year, but you're always going to think about, man, if we could just get an Audit Estime, or if we could just get a Jamal Williams, if we could just get this guy, but the consistency is not going to be there. That's my concern with him. And again, it's a running back. The shelf life is a lot shorter, and we don't know when we're going to get it.
Yep. No, all fair points. I think where I would push back a little bit on the Allen and Quorum comps to him, where I think he's better than both of those guys, is in college he was a more efficient runner than both of them. And even though we didn't see the receiving volume, on the little we did see, he was good. And so you can kind of hold out some hope that okay, maybe if he gets some more receiving work, he wouldn't be bad at it. And maybe a coach would be able to see that. And 4.58 is a lot better to me than a 4.71. I'm glad he ran that 40 at the pro day. Mm-hmm. Maybe that assuages some concerns that NFL GMs and coaches have about his top end speed. So I think there's just some hope there where I don't see as much hope for a Braylon Allen, in my opinion.
That's a fair point as well. We can move off of Audric Estime. Let's talk about what you got going on inside and outside of going for 2. What do you got going?
Yeah, so I'm trying to tweet more. So follow me on Twitter at Target Shares. I went through a tweet all my running back notes in advance of this show, finding some interesting things, doing my wide receiver modeling and stuff like that. So I'm trying to do that more often. Follow me there at Target Shares.
Yes, absolutely. Follow him at Target Shares. Brian is off, but you can go follow Brian at VandyGrad92 over there on Twitter. If you want to get more involved with these guys and have conversations with them and not do it on Twitter, go over to goingfor2.com. You'll be able to see all of Steven's articles posted up there. Then on the right-hand corner, there's a little link to jump into the Discord with us. It is a free Discord. You can always at Steven over there. Get questions answered. Talk to him about his articles. Jump in mock drafts with him. Whatever you decide you want to do. But the Discord is free. Jeff has done a phenomenal job with that Discord. We're changing stuff up left and right, and he's got threads in there. It's crazy. I can't even keep up with all the upgrades that Jeff is doing in there. Like I said at the beginning of the show, it's fixing to be April. We are 4 weeks from tonight, round 1. With that going on, next week you will have what's the show for Thursday night? Oh my God!
Fantasy assessment.
Fantasy assessment.
Thursday one. Yep.
Fantasy assessment will be next week. We will come back in 2 weeks And in 2 weeks, we will do the exact same thing we did tonight, but we'll do it with wide receivers and tight ends.
I love wide receivers. You know that. That's my favorite position.
Well,
so.
it's probably going to be like 16 wide receivers and 2 or 3 tight ends.
We're gonna have to go pretty. Yeah, right. I mean, I want to get down to like the Jacob Cowings of the world and stuff. Like,
so it's going to be fun. I may actually make you do the show sheet for that one, so that we can absolutely dig into each and every single one of these guys.
Yeah, we'll talk about Bowers at tight end, and then who else do you want to talk about?
Maybe Jatavion Sanders, maybe. But we may just have to skip over like Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunes.
Surprise.
We might just have to skip over those guys.
Yeah.
We're skipping over these guys because they were very, very good.
Very good.
These guys are also good,
Yep.
but I'll give you one that's good, and we'll talk about in 2 weeks. McMillan.
Yes.
He's
I think
being overlooked.
I think people are hating too much on Troy Franklin. That'll be my guy that I'll be.
Yeah, Troy Franklin's going in the first round. McMillan's not even being drafted in a lot of these
That's
mocks.
true. Yeah, that's true. But people are hating on Troy Franklin. I'm going to stand up for Troy Franklin in 2 weeks. So
there we go. We got a plan for 2 weeks from now. We will see y'all then. We absolutely appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you're commenting on our stuff. Tell us that we're full of shit. Tell Steven that you love him and you hate me. I don't care. As long as
I love Braylon Allen. He's my running back one. It's like, okay, I want to hear why.
We'll see y'all next week.
Yeah.